got to talk about the big news, though. We have to talk about the big news.
Of course we do.
Texas found their guy. Texas found their guy in Tom Herman. And I want to start this conversation off, Brandon, with something that I heard when I watched the Tom Herman press conference. I got why you said it. Didn't sit right with me, though. Did not sit right with me. And that's when Tom Herman said, and I quote, "We'll win championships, we'll build men of character, we'll graduate our players, and we will do it all with integrity and class." Those last three, building character, graduating players, doing it with integrity and class, cool. I'm fine with that. It's that first one. Leading off with "we'll win championships." There's a lot of pressure on this job. I know you said that you're up for the time being the big-time coach and you're up to the pressure, but if you don't win, you could get fired. Just saying it. I'm not. I'm sitting there going, win some games first, then say we'll win championships.
I think that he did exactly what any coach would do. He came in and he didn't promise.
Fired up the troops.
He didn't say this is a promise. He said what any coach would be saying. And I don't fault him for that. You can't, because they didn't hire him to come in and be mediocre. That's what they obviously hired Charlie Strong for. But I think that for Tom Herman, he's a guy who he is so excited. I mean, I was listening on Mike and Mike on the way into work this morning.
It was his dream job.
And he said it was. He said it was absolutely his dream job. He said he couldn't have been more excited about this. It sounds like he handled it very well with Houston and the players there. It sounds like things went really well. I did think it was very interesting, though, when Greeny asked him, he said, so, LSU, were you ever negotiating anything with them? And he said, and Greeny was like, representatives and stuff, they're always trying to do stuff and stuff like that. And Tom Herman goes, no, I was not, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to keep it right here, almost like, he might have been. But I think that this man is really good. I think that the funny thing is that the person, I shouldn't say the person, the entity that gets hurt the most in him going there, it's going to be the University of Houston. Because what's he going to do? Any of the guys that were going to go to the University of Houston to play with him, we'll just go to Austin. We'll just go to Austin and play.
I do say we will win championships, like I said. I'm the kind of guy where it's like, we talked about it in the Charlie Strong discussion, how much pressure this job is going to have. Like, Mac Brown did such a good job at Texas. I said the one answer of, he wasn't just a head football coach, he was also a politician. Dave on Saturday when we talked about it before the fast break, he said it a different way. He said, Mac Brown was just a good old Texas, a good old Southern boy. That's what Mac Brown was, and he fit the job. Tom Herman needs to fit the job, but he also needs to win, and that's why I said we'll win championships. I know you say, that's not a promise, but guess what? 95% of the fan base sees that as a promise. And if it doesn't happen, I know he didn't say we'll win one this year, we'll win one the year after, not one, not two, not three. He didn't go that far.
But I think he's also... Go ahead.
The one thing I did like that he did say was when he's like, and I want all the high school coaches in Texas, we are your school.
He already started talking to them.
I loved it.
He already started talking to the coaches.
And the reason why I love that is because it's very similar to what Snellenberger did when he took over in the 80s for Miami, where they said, you know what, fuck it, we're roping off Miami and we're calling it the state of Miami. Nobody leaves. Nobody's leaving to go anywhere else. We're pulling all these boys in to play right here in Coral Gables, and we're going to win championships. So part of me is like a little bit of a pussy. I'll say it without being a little PC about it, but we will win championships. I'm like, don't say that, even though that's me just being the wuss I am.
But again, I think that you can't come in and say, we're going to play well, we're going to have a really run program, we're going to do stuff like that, because then people are going to say, well, you're going to win anything? You're going to have people on both sides. If he does say it, you're going to have people like you. Well, he better win it tomorrow then. I'm
not expecting him to win it next year.
But you're not a Texas fan.
No, I'm not a Texas fan. I'm not a booster either.
You're not a.
I'm not a booster either.
You're certainly not. I think that the big thing though is that if he does not win, they're going to give him time. They're going to give him time. So. They didn't give Charlie Strong much time.
Well, Charlie Strong wasn't a Texas boy.
But what I'm saying is, things got very, very dicey early. They got very, very tricky early with Charlie Strong in year one. And I think that now they have the right fit there. They do. They have the right fit there in Austin, Texas. And I'm happy for them. I think that it's going to be a really good marriage there between Tom Herman and that Texas team. But I think it's also going to be good for the players. I think that a lot of the players, what Tom Herman's going to be able to do is he's going to be able to be a guy who, with these players who are really upset about the loss of Charlie Strong, he's going to be able to empathize with them, understand that that's tough. You lost your head coach. You lost a guy who you really trusted, you really were all about. But you know what? We're going to move forward together, and I'm going to help do that. I'm going to help you do that. I am there for you. I am going to help us come together as a team. And guess what? And guess what we're going to do? We're going to win.
He's a player's coach.
And I think that that's huge. I think that this is really a very good thing for Texas. I think it's a great thing for the University of Texas, their fans, everybody, because I think it's, like I said, I think it's finally the guy that they've got now that they've wanted. That's who they wanted. And he finally came available, and it doesn't happen often. And I think that people have talked about it already, that it's one of the quickest turnarounds ever in something like this. A head coach came available, and boom, they went and they scooped him up. And I think that it's a good thing, because you do not, if you're the University of Texas, you do not want to pass on Tom Herman and hope that another Tom Herman comes along, because guess what? You may be waiting another 6 to 8 years. And you know what's going to be happening in between then? You're not going to be winning, and you're not going to be happy with who you get. You'll be satisfied for the time being. So this is huge. And I'm really happy for Tom Herman. I'm happy for the University of Texas. And now the University of Houston, they're going to have to try and find a guy who will be able to fill that spot. Possibly Charlie Strong. I hear he's looking for a new job.
Yeah, well, he is looking for a new job. The early things that I heard with Houston was that maybe Art Briles goes back and
good Lord,
coaches Houston, because apparently he has ties to the Cougars in some way. But
apparently he's not doing it. Well, he's probably involved in a scandal there, wants to go back and make sure he can just keep it going.
The thing that I do want to touch on with the Tom Herman discussion is what we kind of touched a little bit, but I want to dive into it, is the thing I really liked was when he kind of said, hey, this is our program. If you're a Texas kid, if you're a Texas student, you're a Texas high school coach, we are your school. We are the flagship team in this state. Because like I said, it reminds me very much of what I saw in the U Part 1, the 30 for 30, which made that Miami Hurricane team so successful. And when you're in a state which high school football, really the Texas players are usually some of the best players that we see coming out of high school ball, why not target them? Why not go with a complete team of Texas high school players and just kind of sweep right through? I think this has with that model, has a great building to kind of start the success at Texas, because that team he's getting isn't no cupcake team. I know that Charlie Strong wasn't able to do great things with it, but a game that we mentioned just in the first segment, look at that Notre Dame game. That team knows how to fight. That team's got players on it now, and he's just going to just help that recruiting and bring in just even better players. And like when we mentioned like how I was like, oh, well, he's a player coach, and then you were talking about how his relationship with the players. You want to know who he learned that from? Who else I would consider a player's coach, and a pretty damn good one, who's right now probably going to make it to the college football playoff? Urban Meyer. who not only had success at Florida, but also comes to the Big Ten and has success at Ohio State. A guy where, to me, I see him as also that player coach and actually cares about his players and how they're doing, not just as X's and O's on the field. Because I feel like Tom Herman learned everything how to be that head football coach in his years at Ohio State.
But also
and then he brought it to Houston.
But also wasn't he a grad assistant
at Texas
under Mac Brown?
Mm-hmm. So he's got mentors.
So he's got a number of different mentors. I think that that's a huge thing though, and I think that that's the biggest part is what you just brought up. Now it's not always about the X's and O's because, there's a lot of times where, guess what? There's more things that are important than the X's and O's. There's family, there's friends, there's things like that. There's things that everyone's got going on in their life, and if you can't be sympathetic to that, if you cannot relate to that, if you cannot help them there, you're never going to grow as a program because you're never going to grow as a person. And I think that I'm not saying that Charlie Strong did not do that. I'm actually saying that Charlie Strong did a great job of that. He just didn't do enough.
Well, he had
unfortunately
in the
X's and O's department, unfortunately, and it's not. It's really not
I would
him.
say it's
he wasn't
Strong's fault.
He wasn't on the field, trying to produce. It just it did not end up working out. But I think that Tom Herman is going to be the exact same in that department as Charlie Strong, and I think the guys are going to respect him just as much as they did with Charlie Strong. And I think that, fortunately, though, for Tom Herman, I think the X's and O's will work out a lot better. I mean, you can take a look. You've got Shane Buechele, who was a true freshman quarterback this season. He really showed some good strides. He had some really good games. I think that he showed some really good flashes of what he could be. And I think that Tom Herman will certainly help to bring him out and hopefully make him even better. You said it too. This team has fight. You saw it in that game against Notre Dame. You've seen it in a couple of games. You saw it even 2 years ago when they beat Baylor when they weren't supposed to beat Baylor at the end of the season. So this team is not terrible. It's just not producing the way that they should be, and it's not the way that they need to be. It's the way that they should be. This Texas team is built on tradition and all of these things. We talked about it before, how you said, the New York Yankees and the Texas Longhorns, they have their own networks. And you bring in a lot of revenue. You can't lose. You can't have losing seasons. Doesn't happen. And I think when you do, and then you do it 3 times in a row, scares a lot of people. People have to do things they don't want to do. But I think that moving forward now, Texas is in a good position with this coach, and I'm excited to see who he brings in this next recruiting class. It's going to be really interesting. I think that the light at the end of the tunnel, Texas is right there.
Well, and just to kind of bring it full circle, to answer the question that we have and what this segment is titled, if you're watching us on YouTube, is, can Tom Herman handle the pressure at Texas? Despite what I said earlier, you might be saying, well, Ricky's going to say no because he wasn't really 100% on board with the we will win championships thing just because of that pressure. I think Tom Herman's going to handle it because Tom Herman, to me, is one of those not just good head coaches, great head coaches. And it all starts with the relationship with his players, on top of understanding the X's and O's part. I think that Texas, next year might be, wow, this team is really good, but then they finish out maybe 500 at the least, and then they just start get better and better and better with the recruiting class that Tom Herman brings in. And the thing that I'll be interested to see on top of your point, you said, what kids he brings in. I want to see how he tackles his scheduling. Because year 2 at Houston, he went after Louisville. He went after Oklahoma. What's he going to do with Texas? Because now that you're on that Power 5 stage, is he going to try to tackle in LSU? Is he going to try to tackle in Alabama? Do we see a Texas-Ohio State game at a neutral site? Kind of former coaches going at each other in that sense. So to me, that's the thing I'm going to be most interested to see is after that first year, how does he tackle the scheduling? What big opponents does he go after? Because you got to know that to win championships, you got to make it to the college football playoff. How do you make it to the college football playoff? You win your conference and you schedule good non-conference opponents, unless you're Alabama. But Alabama plays in the SEC, so they've got good opponents all throughout their conference schedule.
I think that he's going to be just fine handling the pressure. I don't think that there's going to be any problem. I think he's super excited. I don't think it's because he's, way in over his head. Mm-hmm. He's going to be just fine. No one needs to worry about any of that. And I think that he's definitely going to put some challenges on his schedule, especially being in the Big 12 where so many people are like, whatever. I think that he's definitely going to try and bring some life not only to that Texas team, but I think he's going to try and bring some more life to the Big 12 and try and get them some respect and some respect back. Even maybe back in the day when Texas was Texas with Vince Young.
And going back to the national title game against the Trojans and national title game with Colt McCoy against the Alabama Crimson Tide. But we all know how that one turned out for Colt McCoy and the boys. But this is where you guys come in and let us know what you think about Tom Herman accepting the job. Can he handle the pressure? What do you think Texas is going to be in the Tom Herman era?